Today in the Hot Shop, we're going to be making a pretty unique piece for you that we've never done before, but we also have a massive announcement about the channel, so make sure you stay around until the end so you can hear about it. So this is called a cane roll-up. Basically, we take these long strands of glass and we roll them up onto a little piece of glass that's on the tip of our pipe. It makes this little tube, and then we end up having to cut the tip off of it so that it seals off our kind of bubble in the middle. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking these little bits that we're cutting off into the paddle in these little clips, and we're basically going to be making a piece out of them. So we'll take them, we'll line them up on this little pastorelli plate right here, and then we'll just be able to mush them together, get them nice and hot, create a flat kind of a plate, and then we'll roll it up just like we did with those canes previously, and then we'll have a cool little color pattern. I've seen other glass artists do this, and I've always thought it was a cool idea. It's kind of like a little piece of every piece of work you've made this month. Now that we have all of these laid out, I'll throw it in our annealer, which is basically a large kiln to preheat it, and we'll turn it on, we'll crank it up to 900 degrees, and then it'll be nice and hot, ready for us to heat up even further. But while I'm throwing this in here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I know a lot of you guys out there aren't subscribed and you comment. I see a lot of the same people, but you guys are subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. So now we've got the annealer on, and it's up to about 920 degrees. My brother is going to pick it up on the forks, and we'll transport it over to the glory hole to start to heat it up even more. You've got to kind of be gentle when you're first heating it up, because it goes from about 900 degrees to about 2,000 pretty quickly. So Luke's going to slowly start to kind of submerge it into the heat. The burner that heats the glory hole is on the left side of the hole, so we have to periodically flip the plate around once it heats up. Otherwise, one side of the plate will start to get way hotter than the other. So what we're doing now is we're flipping it around, heating it up, flipping it around, and heating it up, and then we'll start to squeeze it and compress it to try to minimize the gaps in between our discs. Whenever we're heating this glass up, the glass kind of interacts with the heat like light does. You know, the darker stuff heats up quicker than the lighter stuff, so the darker things will heat up faster, and they move quicker, and then the lighter ones will be more stiff, and they take longer to get as equally hot. So once everything's to a nice hot temperature, I'm going to use these little bamboo cutters to start to compress it together. And once I've compressed it enough, I'm going to use my pie divider to figure out how big my collar needs to be. And then we'll go ahead and get a little bit of glass out of the furnace. So the furnace houses all of our clear glass, and it stays on 24/7 at about 2,000 degrees. But now you're going to see me have a little bit of glass on the tip of my pipe. I'll blow a bubble through it very quickly, and then I'll put the pipe back into the furnace to get rid of that bubble so that I have a ring of glass on the tip of my pipe that I can blow straight through. Ultimately, I want this little ring of glass on the tip of my pipe, what we call the collar, to be about as wide as the measurement that I took from the pie divider. That way, I know that I can roll up that plate into a nice perfect circle around the collar. So I've got a small amount of time to manipulate it before it starts to cool down, and I'm going to use my newspaper tool to really give it a nice big push. And now we're at the marvering table, and we'll make sure that it's the correct size. And now we can go for the roll-up.
I need some help.
So the roll-up went pretty smoothly, and now all we have to do is connect it so that it's a nice cylinder, and then we'll be good to go. We'll start to compress. So right now I just want to make sure all of the circles are touching, at least at 4 points, just so that we have the smallest amount of gaps as possible. And I can at least roll it on my marvering table, and then it'll be all about compressing it and making sure that it all stays nice and flat and we get good pattern on the outside.
Yeah, yeah. You want me to get closer to you? Okay. Okay, awesome. Alright, awesome. That's my thing. I'm just like my mother. So, I'm gonna fight with... No, I'm just saying, like... Oh yeah, she's crazy. Looks great, man. All the... maybe 1 or 2 little gaps left.
So now you can see we've minimized a lot of those holes, but there's still one right there. You can see that fire kind of coming out of it. So we did a few more heats just to make sure that it's all sealed up.
I think it sealed it. But I could be wrong. Alright, off. Yeah, give me a second to cool down, but then yes. Wow. Wow, that looks pretty cool. Does it look crazy? Yeah, man. Makes me want to...
Now that we've eliminated all the holes in the walls of the cylinder, we have to seal off the top. So my brother has put a small bit of clear glass on the marvering table, and I'm going to pick this up on the end of the tube so that it seals it off. This way, whenever I cut that glass off, I don't get rid of my pattern at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, she married Legolas, dude.
And now we just have to get rid of that, and we're all sealed up.
You can blow.
So So the next step is for us to get another layer of glass out of the furnace, which is what we call gathering. So I'm going to roll this on the marber to make sure that there's no bumps or divots in it so that I don't pick up any bubbles out of the clear glass in the furnace. And then we'll give it a few minutes to cool down so that it's nice and solid when I put that 2000 degree glass on top of it, and we'll go ahead and go for the gather. So like I said before, this furnace holds all of our clear glass. This furnace holds about 700 pounds of clear glass, and it stays on 24/7 at about 2000 degrees. So this is what we call a strip gather. I'm going to get rid of all the excess glass by going vertical into that bucket, and now I can just trail off the rest, and it's nice and smooth.
Make it worse over time.
So now we're going to start to cool it down in certain areas so that we can begin to expand it. The different colors in the glass makes this one to expand in different directions, so you really have to baby it when it starts to inflate. We want to do it bit by bit. We don't want to do it all at once. So now I've got my newspaper tool and I'm beginning to cool down certain areas of the glass. I'll have my brother blow into the pipe, start to inflate it so that I can manipulate the bubble with the cold newspaper tool. This tool is about 12 sheets of newspaper rolled up and soaked in water.
Give me some air on. Off. That sounds like a great little gig. Corey was doing something like that out on the beach for a little while ago.
So this is what we call putting in the jack line. The tool in my hands are called the jacks, and I'm basically putting a small incision right off of the tip of my pipe. This is where we're going to break this piece off of the pipe when we transfer it to a second one a little bit farther down in the process. But you have to make sure that there's a nice incision so that this area is nice and thin so it cools down and it'll eventually want to break.
A little hard. All right, off. Thank you. I'm going to make it a little longer and then we'll flatten it.
And now we're going to use one of my favorite tools in the studio, the cork paddles. So we rub these cork paddles on either side, and I'll have my assistant, my brother, flip the piece back and forth so that it starts to flatten and get wider and wider.
Flip. All right, you can turn. Yeah. All right. Blah. Okay, whatever. Let me see. Yeah, I'll take a bit.
It's gotten kind of thin on the bottom, and this is where we're going to have to connect our transferring pipe once we break it off of this one. So we're going to put a small little patch on the bottom so that it makes it just a little bit thicker.
Should use my jacks.
And now we're going to go for our transfer. So this is what we call the punty. It's a small bit of glass on a solid pipe, and I'm going to stab it onto the bottom, as bullseye on the bottom as I can. I'll give it a small amount of time to solidify and make sure that I'm smack dab in the middle. And then we'll add a small bit of water on that jack line where we want it to break, like I mentioned before. I'll pull the pipe up onto the rail, give it a tap, and it should break right off. So now we have it flipped over on a second pipe, and I'm going to start to heat up the area that I was previously cooling down. Because remember, that lip right there, that hole that was connected to the other pipe, it was cold enough to break, so it might have been around 900 degrees, 1000 degrees, something like that. And now that it's heated back up and it's hot enough to move, we can put the finishing touches on the piece.
Look, can you do me a favor? Can you go look at our annealers?
All right, and I think that that's about it for this piece. So we're going to heat the punny back up a little bit, make sure that it's nice and hot, not too cold, and then we'll go ahead and break it off the pipe.
I'm hot. Woo! Yeah, I do too. Yeah, yeah. All right, last flash. Coming out.
So now we're going to start to apply a small bit of water right where we want it to break. And my brother has thrown on some Kevlar gloves and a welding jacket so that he can hold it in his hands, and then we'll put it in our annealer so that it doesn't crack. So now if I did my job right, we just tap the pipe, it comes right off, get rid of any sharp spots with our map torch, and then it's a little bit of a mad dash to try to get it in the annealer before it gets too cold. So the annealer that I'm talking about is a kiln that's heated up to 900 degrees. We can put the glass in it so that it doesn't break and it keeps it at that maintained heat, and then it'll slowly cool down over about 12 hours. We'll be able to come see it in the morning.
Sweet, man.
And here we go. I love how it came out. These pieces are super cool. Like I said before, it's kind of like a remembrance piece. It's all the pieces you've made recently, all your different cutoffs. Maybe they're from years ago. Maybe they're all made this week. Who knows? But it's a really cool design, and you get something kind of cool. It was fun to mess around with. So I've been thinking about doing this for a while. I'm really glad that I did. And now we actually have this piece up on my website, so it's available for purchase for anyone who is looking to buy it. There's a link below in the description if you're looking for a link to my Etsy page or my regular website for where it is for purchase.